Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. This is the Idaho quadruple murders. This is for entertainment purpose solely, and this is for fair use purpose. I repeat, fair use purpose. This interview was done by JLR Investigates. Please like, share, and subscribe to him. The whole interview is at his channel, but I found it to be a very interesting interview due to he's taking the interview with a person who lives right next to Kings Road, 1122 Kings Road, and he's going to give us some insight of where he was and what he saw on the 13th of November 2022. I repeat, this is for fair use purpose. Please like, share, and subscribe.
Hello?
Hi, Kanan. It's Jonathan Riches. Thanks for taking my call and agreeing to an interview with me. How are you doing?
Doing all right, I guess.
So tell me what's going on. You are a neighbor of where these stabbings happened.
Yeah, I live like right around the corner, I guess. I can see the building where it happened from my driveway.
Okay.
I didn't know anything had happened. It was around noon on Sunday that I was driving home and saw a bunch of the like cop cars and ambulances and was kind of weirded out of like what was even going on.
Yeah.
But besides that, I hadn't, like the night before, I hadn't seen anything. I already had two detectives come to my place and ask me as well if I had seen anything unusual or anything like that.
When they came to your place, what do you mean, your home or your work?
My home.
Okay. Did they go, did you see police go to other neighbors' homes? Were they going from door to door?
Yeah, it looked like they were going door to door. They knocked on my door. They knocked on the apartment right next to my door. But the girls that live in the apartment next to me haven't been home since like this happened. They'll swing by for a few minutes to grab stuff, but they haven't been home. So I've kind of been wondering like if, everybody in the neighborhood is just kind of left due to the fact of nobody feels safe, and I don't have that option.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that, but like when the police came, like what were they asking you? Like were they asking you about surveillance? Where were you at? Like what kind of questions were they asking?
He said that on the 13th of November, when he was driving on his way home, he saw a couple of police cars and ambulances parked in front of 1122 Kings Road. I found that to be very interesting because why would there be a couple of ambulances? Police cars I can understand. Maybe one ambulance in case someone passed out, if someone was unconscious, but a couple of ambulances. I wonder, just my speculation, could it be possible that the bodies were taken away by the ambulances and then the police started processing the crime scene? But usually the bodies and everything have to the bodies have to remain at the scene until the coroner comes and does their thorough investigation. So I found this to be a bit strange. Couple of ambulances and police cars.
Feel safe, and I don't have that option.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that, but for like when the police came, like what were they asking you? Like were they asking you about surveillance? Where were you at? Like what kind of questions were they asking?
Yeah, they asked me, I'm going to guess the standard routine questions when they're canvassing the neighborhood. They started off saying that they were canvassing the neighborhood and asking everybody that lived in the area if they'd seen anything unusual, heard anything that night. They did ask me like what I was doing that night, which I was at home with my girlfriend at the time, and we were in bed when the around the time that the murders had happened.
Yeah.
And they asked me if I could hear cars driving by from inside of my apartment, which unfortunately most of my apartment's underground, so I can't hear much that goes on outside of it. I had told them that usually on weekends, that entire neighborhood, the King Road and Queens Road area, is just big party central. I mean, I can hear the music from inside, but other than that, I
Really?
wasn't hearing anything.
Is that on a regular occurrence? Like, does that happen regularly?
Yeah, it was usually every weekend that there were parties. Since it's happened, there haven't been any parties for obvious reasons.
Yeah, where were they partying? At that house, or other houses there, or that house particular, or the whole?
I wasn't exactly sure what houses exactly. There's a large apartment complex that goes along the main road right there. That I've seen a lot of parties at, and I know up King Road there's a couple of different buildings that party, but I haven't gone walking around and seen exactly what houses were partying.
Yeah. Have you ever met these any of the occupants of the house? Have you ever talked to them before?
No. The only neighbors I've met are the ones that are directly in my building.
Yeah.
I try to just keep to myself for the most part.
Yeah. So that fraternity, there's a fraternity frat house there, right by there?
Yeah, across the street from where the murders happened, that main road, there's that hill.
Yeah. I think it's Sigma Chi.
I think so.
Now, from that fraternity, have you ever seen people walking from King Street to that fraternity, back and forth, through the grass there, or
Yes, that is something for the parties that I've seen a lot of the frats and the sororities along there. They would walk down that hill across the grass and then go to either the King Road area or the main road there and go to the parties, because I know that U of I is a dry campus, so that's right off of the campus ground, so they're able to drink and party, and it's always been since U of I became a dry college. That's always been the party central.
When did college?
I'd guess probably about 6 to 10 years ago. I honestly wouldn't know.
So I'm assuming it's a thing with all the university students to get housing there, or that's the spot to party.
Yeah, as far as I know.
I believe he lives at Taylor Avenue flats or apartments. So that would be opposite the Sigma Chi and the Banfield, where the police alcohol body cam took place. We do know that there are a lot of parties there, but most of the news medias say that they heard from sources that 1122 Kings Road was a party venue or party central. I wonder how many people attended the parties in 1122 Kings Road. So if there are hundreds and hundreds of people at different times who've attended the parties at 1122 Kings Road, or even just say 20 people at a time, we are talking about thousands of DNAs everywhere in the house. It's a 3-story house, 1122 Kings Road. So there would have been plenty of evidence. My question is that, or could that be the reason that the university and the police decided to demolish the house. I was really disappointed the day they did that, and I can imagine, especially the parents of Maddie and Kaylee were really disappointed. Steve spoke about that. And it doesn't make sense. Xana's family was disappointed too. This doesn't make sense. Why would you demolish a house before the trial has even started? And now that it looks like Brian Christopher Koberger has a partial alibi, if that alibi turns to be true, there are many people who have already judged Brian Christopher Koberger and found him guilty, which doesn't make sense. Talk about big YouTube channels, and that isn't right. No one's guilty until proven guilty. I've never said that I think that Brian Christopher Koberger is completely innocent, but I've never said that I believe that he's guilty either. I'm in between. It's a 50-50 chance. Because after everything I see happening in the Grub Truck, Banfield, we don't know what happened in the Corner Club. We heard Kaylee asking Maddie, what did you tell Adam? Maddie said, I told Adam like everything. We saw what was happening in the Grub Truck especially. Jovita was watching some disturbing pictures. I believe that all these people at the Grub Truck, Banfield, were either in some kind of group chat where the pictures were being shared around, or there was on some kind of dark web or something. They had to be watching some kind of live stream because this doesn't make sense. Especially the pictures that Saeed is watching in the Banfield. We saw a female sitting on the bed. I pointed that out in May last year. And we heard what Kaylee's family said. Her parents said that Kaylee was found in the sitting position.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Do people like park on the street there from the frat houses? Is there cars? Do you ever see like cars fill the streets there?
Yeah, like Halloween night, there was tons of vehicles parked all on up and down our road, going to those parties.
Is that that's Taylor or King or what road is that? Taylor, right?
I think it's Taylor, the main one that like King branches off onto, and then it goes up and turns into Willenta, which is where I live, around that corner.
So basically, is all the neighbors around there right now are just scared? I know you told me that in email that you're scared, fearing that there's a killer on the loose or killers.
Yeah, and like that's something that Moscow's never really had. I mean, we've had a couple of homicides or murders in town, but nothing like this before, especially with not having an answer within a few days. Like the last one we had was some guy shot up Arby's in a real estate place like years ago. I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago now.
I believe it's 2015 was the last homicide. I believe that's what they were saying.
Oh wow! So I guess it's been a little longer.
If that's the same one, I don't know.
Yeah.
I personally think they're talking about two separate murders. The last murder that happened was a young man, and that was in 2015. I'm sure there has been other murders here and there, because let's not forget that after the quadruple murders happened, there was this man in Idaho Mosque, I believe, or Idaho, who ended up unliving 4 members in his family with gunshots.
This isn't very common for this area, and it's quite alarming and concerning that, the police haven't really had any form of information or nothing new for us to go on. And
Does that frustrate you? Does that what's your thoughts about that? Lack of information.
Sorry, what was that?
Lack of information, lack of updates.
Yeah, just more along the lines of just lack of information that they're sharing. Because, like, when they first came out and did that first press conference and said that, oh, this is an isolated attack, there's nothing to worry about, I just was like, I don't believe that. And the guys here, I work at Napa Auto Parts, and we all have been, trying to see what the news says or if there's any new information. And the lack of information is something that's kind of frustrating. Trying to see what the news says or if there's any new information, and the lack of information is something that's kind of frustrating, especially being I live alone, so it's kind of, I don't know, worrisome. And I mean, as I'm sure you know, my address is a public information.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I did want to ask you, and I'm definitely objective here. I'm not going to judge you or anything like that, and I know that you are a registered SO, and that's why I asked you when I emailed, like, did they come to you just because of your past, just to question you?
No, they actually, when the detectives came to my door, they actually didn't even know anything about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had told them, I was like, I do have a 10 o'clock curfew every night due to the fact that I am on felony probation. They asked me why I was on probation, and when I told them what my crime was, they were like, oh, okay, like it wasn't nothing big, wasn't anything to look into type thing.
Yeah, well, I'm shocked that they didn't know. You would think that they would go door to door and already know who they're speaking to.
Yeah, you'd think they'd have an idea of like who lives there or something, but it didn't seem like they had any idea of who was living where or anything.
No, so, like, do you have confidence in the police that they're going to solve this?
I want to say yes, but given 2 weeks that has already gone by, and I mean, we don't know what kind of information they do have. And with today's technology and everything else, I mean, you would think with DNA and the FBI being involved and everything else that they would at least have some form of lead.
There's a couple of points here. To start with, when the police usually investigate homicides, and this is a quadruple murders, they are expected to know of everyone who's registered as a SO. No offense to this young gentleman who was brave enough to do this interview. May God bless him for that. Not any of these students were willing to do any interviews, except this young man, and he did a beautiful job. So you would expect the police to know who's registered as a SO, who's registered for anger management, who's registered for different kind of registrations. That is the first thing they're supposed to do, and that is the first people's doors they're supposed to knock at. Before we look into this case, and especially to all my channel members and viewers who've been watching my channel, the point I try to always get across home is the crime scene was handled in a very wrong manner, very unprofessional, really baffling. We saw that they didn't have the forensic gear on. And then on top of that, besides the forensics team, we have the police here, detectives, who are supposed to be knocking at the right doors, and even the wrong doors, knocking on each and every door until they get to the bottom of this. I believe that is where the mistake happened. And it's not a mistake. It was the choice of Moscow, Idaho police to request for the FBI. I live in London, UK, and I already know that. I've always known that. the suspect or suspects could have left even Idaho, Moscow. That is the reason the FBI is supposed to be involved once it crosses state lines. But I guess Idaho, Moscow felt comfortable that they would successfully catch the person who did these horrific crimes in a short period, that they may have ended up catching the wrong person. This is what happens when a thorough investigation hasn't been done. And this is not the first time we're hearing this. This is not the first person or first student or first neighbor who has said that the police did not know that he was registered as SO. I mean, this is not the first neighbor who has said something about, like, the police hasn't even knocked my door. You would expect them to make sure that they go around asking the right questions. Because imagine if they did not knock every door, there could have been someone who actually saw it, who was unwilling to talk because they've been threatened or they were scared. What about those people? Aren't they supposed to get counselors, psychologists, and the police are trained to doing police integrations. Until somebody asks for the lawyer or the solicitor, you're not supposed to stop your investigation. The police are supposed to carry on with the investigation. We heard clearly that Jack John Showalter, hoodie guy, his interview was done over the phone. He left at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. He drove to Boise, Idaho. So if people like hoodie guy, who was the last person to see Maddie and Kaylee alive, got away so easily over a phone integration, you're supposed to see these people face to face. The police should have knocked at their doors or sent the police in Boise to his cabin or wherever. The reason the police do that, although I'm not a police officer or a detective or FBI, we know that. We watch plenty of movies. We watch enough true crime. We watch plenty of 48 Hours since I was young. So we would know automatically that the police are supposed to go and take a face-to-face integration to even check. This was a knife crime or knife crimes quadruples. The police are supposed to check their hands, check if they have any scratches on their face. Didn't Zana Knodel, may she rest in peace, didn't she fight for life? Didn't she defend herself? I study pictures and I see that Zana used to always have long nails. She would have ended up scratching the killer. And keep in mind that we've heard from Chief Lanier and Chief Fry that the first police that arrived at the scene, some of them were kids. One of them was barely 26 years old. So they've never ever witnessed a horrific quadruple murder like this. The more experience you had at the job, the more you would know which route to take. Let's not forget there were people actually going up and down inside this house. There were people standing outside when the police came. There were many people inside. And now we are hearing there were ambulances outside. Ambulances outside. I find this to be strange. Another thing that I've noticed this young man and JLR have been discussing about, to start with, JLR does, people are different, people have different tastes. I love JLR's interviews because he always asks the right questions. Definitely. He never shies away to come to the point of asking the perfect questions. And what they're discussing about is the young man said that the police asked him if he heard any cars or any car noises, but he was sleeping. What about, have the police ever thought that it doesn't necessarily have to be a person driving a car? It could have definitely been people on foot, like the Sigma Chi boys, fraternity boys, and other fraternities and sororities and the whole Greek lifestyle, allegedly. Now, this is only my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion. There's so many things, so many articles, although there's speculation.
At least have some form of lead, and it just kind of...
Well, let me ask you something. As a resident, like, okay, so to get out of that neighborhood, you would have to go down Taylor all the way down to Main Street?
Yes. I usually, like, leave my place, I'll go down Taylor, or the rest of Wilenta, into Taylor, and then I'll take that first left to go more into campus.
Do you know if there's, like, traffic street cams or surveillance cameras on the street lights at those corners? Do you see any?
Unfortunately, I don't think there's any kind of street cameras until you get to the main roads where the stoplights are. But
that's really like because I did like a Google map and I saw at the end of Taylor was like a gas station there, like a gas station and Main Street. And I saw that the gas station had like surveillance there. And I'm just wondering, like, there's only a few ways to get to that King Street address, correct?
Correct.
And you would think that, whoever, if someone came in with, a car or a vehicle, whether they came in or out, they would be seen on some surveillance somewhere.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that, like, the U of I also has some, like, street cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, the only way that might not have cameras would be up over the hill that goes, like, up to the Kitty Dome and to the other side of town.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, there are no cameras when you take the alleyway between Taylor Avenue, near the apartments, when you're walking from Taylor Avenue upwards to 1122 Kings Road. We've seen Brian Enton and the Inside Edition reporter walking up the steps, and it brings you right in front of the girls' house, 1122 Kings Road. So I do not believe there's any cameras around those areas. And that is one of the reasons I strongly believe that the Sigma Chi fraternity boys allegedly, or the fraternities, were involved. Let's not forget the 4chan. They clearly said that they would do this in 90 minutes. If we did not see 4 to 5 figures running, we wouldn't have been speculating on the Sigma Chi, especially me. When I started speculating about the Sigma Chi and the other fraternities and sororities, I felt kind of odd because I was the only one bringing them up since May last year. But lately I've seen the other channels that are talking about them too the last 2-3 months. But the way I did my research and the way I was doing my investigations, I started with the facts from the beginning of this case. I promise y'all I will never leave any stone unturned. And I'm trying to do that. But I still believe that there could have been a white Hyundai Elantra 2011 to 2013 driving around those areas because the police were searching for a white Hyundai. And I really do believe that they were searching for one that was 2011 and 2013 model, because they wouldn't have just come up with that number. The models of the Hyundais are, each model, each year has a different look for each and every car. It may be minor, it may be small, but there's always something to tell the different models. So for them to come out to 2011 to 2013, white Hyundai, I believe they knew it was a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai. I've clearly showed y'all that Jack D had a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai, and he had a white pickup car that he sold within a week after the murders. I don't know if it's the Hyundai Elantra that he allegedly sold or if it was the white pickup car, but whatever he sold should have been investigated properly, because Jack D was one of the last people to be ruled out. And let's not forget, the mayor of Idaho, Moscow, said himself he believes this was a crime of passion. That is just my speculations, but I believe that some people could have come with a car, and some people were on foot. The Sigma Chi boys, because the figures were running from 11 to 22 Kings Road, and they were running to that direction. Sigma Chi. That's why I always say Sigma Chi. Then the 4chan articles. You can even see that they said they would take 90 minutes to do these horrific crimes. They mentioned that they were going to switch off their phone devices and leave them at home so that the Wi-Fi in 11 to 22 Kings Road or near those areas does not connect to their devices. What I'm trying to say is I believe it's easier for someone or some people or some suspects to have come by foot. We've even heard from Ashley Banfield, to her sources, she said DM and BF heard rummaging upstairs and they thought it was the Sigma Chi fraternity boys. She thought that there was a party upstairs. Plus, let's not forget, that is the reason it was said that she called Hunter when she got up, because she thought she heard rummaging upstairs from the Sigma Chi boys. Why would she say Sigma Chi? She didn't say other fraternities. The correct justice has to be served. These 4 students deserve it. These 4 victims deserve it furthermore.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, but besides that, I know that the gas station does have exterior cameras, and the street light right there where Pizza Hut's at does have street cameras.
Okay. Prior to the stabbings, have you ever seen police around there for calls of like fights or disturbances or anything like that?
Probably like a noise disturbance. I've seen cops there a handful of times, just because of noise is too loud, music's too loud, people are drunk, stuff like that.
When's the last time you saw that?
Probably a couple weeks before the murder happened.
Oh, really? So the police were called there, to that area?
Yeah, into the area. I don't know if it was the exact address that the murders took place, but I know that I had seen, lights from a cop car down the street from me, but...
So has the area been quiet since the stabbings? Like, is there partying or anything? What's going on? What's the scene like now?
Right now, everything's been pretty quiet. The first week after it happened, we were having a ton of car traffic coming up the street, pulling into my driveway and turning back around to drive back down. I think people were just driving around to kind of see what happened, where it happened, and
a lot of times
as close as possible.
Yeah, a lot of times that's spectators or media, maybe, or just curiosity. People that are just coming. Have you seen a lot of media there?
I see more media outside of the police station and at the U of I signs.
So what?
I personally believe that it was mostly the media. There was there some YouTubers, JLR was there, Olivia was there, Bullhorn Betty was there, and obviously there were many people who were really interested in this case because this was a horrific quadruple at a student campus. So obviously there'll be a lot of spectators and other people there.
So what's your thoughts, like, if this doesn't get solved soon? Like, do you plan to move? Do you plan to stay there? Or are you just going to be? What's your next steps? Like, be extra vigilant, get some cameras, gun. What's gonna go on?
Oh, unfortunately, with me being a felon, I can't own weaponry.
Yeah.
But that would be one of my next steps, is to have some form of like home defense due to the fact of this being like so close to me. I've thought about trying to move, but moving in this day and age is kind of hard.
Yeah.
But I make sure that if I go outside, you know, my lights are on. I don't leave my house past 10 o'clock anyways.
Yeah.
I always make sure my doors are locked, my car is locked. I'm taking extra precautions and being like more careful on walking things, but
As
besides
should.
that, I don't have much of an option.
And you know, you're a grown adult male, and you're even saying that you're scared, you know, so that shows how the magnitude of what's going on there when you have guys and adults scared and, you know, don't know who's out there, what's out there, and what's going on. You know, that's
Yeah.
big.
It is, and what makes it a little more uncomfortable is we don't know why these people were murdered, like what caused the attack.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to bring my crime into this, but like I've always been kind of worried that I would be a target due to the fact that my stuff is already public.
Yeah.
And I just found out from my coworkers that one of the news stations had me and the two other sex offenders that live in the area plastered all over the news, and it's quite unnerving because, like, say if the killer is not just, you know, picky on who he's murdering, or she is, or, you know, whoever it is, what's to stop them from coming to my place, or my neighbors for that matter, or you know, striking somewhere else in town? Because my dad, he lives all the way across town, but like I still worry about his safety. So, because I know attacks like this, yeah, it happened in my neighborhood, but it affects the entire town safety.
And not only that, and you know, people might see your name plastered, or you know, run your name and then just think, oh, he's a suspect. You did it because of your past, and then start sending police to your house, you know, saying you got to question him or you got to talk to him, something in that nature too.
I agree with this young gentleman. Actually, police is the last thing I would have been worried about if I was in his situation. But obviously he is worried about the people, the media, mainstream media was plastering his name and two other SOs around the mainstream. And if they're doing that, then that is completely wrong, because these people have rights too. Because he's right. If the suspect who did this horrific quadruple murders was out for any, just say any victim that he could get, if he sees their names out in the media, he may have his own ethical morals or something, and may make him his next target. That is really unfair. But the good thing is the police were clear to say that this was a targeted attack. And let's think, why would Brian Christopher Koberger target 4 victims that he doesn't know? Let's not forget, Ann Taylor said there's no connections between the 4 victims and Mr. Brian Christopher Koberger. And I've always thought, is there any connections between Brian Christopher Koberger and the surviving roommates? The reason I believe that is Brian Christopher Kohlberger has said two things that are really important. He stressed about those 2 points. He said, I'm looking forward to be exonerated. And he said, BF, Bethany Funk, has exonerated evidence. No, sorry, exculpatory evidence. He is going to be exonerated, and BF has exculpatory evidence. Was BF dating Brian Christopher Kohlberger? Was she flirting around with him? Was she his dealer? Because allegedly, the reason I'm speculating is this was a party central. We've seen Venmo exchange, I showed you all in my channel, Venmo payments between BF and other parties. And we saw was a coke being mentioned. So that will lead us to speculations. Then you have a Uber cab driver who drives many people to that house, to 1122 Kings Road, said clearly that I used to drive people there to buy drugs. That's his words, and he said that on the local news paper. And let's not forget that William Thompson, the prosecutor, said in his interview to Brian Anton, I believe, he said that he believed that the house was the target. Of course, if you're selling anything in the house, allegedly, it is going to be a target. And these are young students who live in the campus. If they're broke, they may end up robbing the house. If someone or two or three people, or if all of them were dealing from the house, there could have been some unsatisfied customers. And that is enough for a motive. If the person is unstable, very unbalanced, he could end up targeting them. That can be a motive. But my most important motive that I still say is, it is the fraternities and sororities. Look at what they were doing at the grub truck. Watching the pictures, you could see them all nodding their heads towards each other, giving each other signals at the grub truck when Maddie Cayley arrived. Until they left.
My place, I was quite nervous that I was already a suspect because of my crime, because of my history. And I was like, I was home, and I had somebody over, so I know that I'm good because I have a solid alibi and everything else. But it's the fact that people jump to conclusions, especially when in situations like this where there's not enough information given to the public, that the public starts turning on itself, trying to, weed out who the killer is. And the first people that are targeted are people with criminal history.
Yeah. I get it. I totally get it. Do you know who owns that house by any chance? Have you ever seen the owner, the actual owner?
I do.
Who's the owner?
So my landlord, it's his daughter, but the landlord is Chuck. Oh crap! I can't remember his last name. I know his daughter's something Delphus is her last name.
Delphus. So they own a bunch of homes there?
I know she owns this one, and then Chuck, he is the landlord to several apartment complexes around the area.
Have you seen him come around? Have you seen any of them come around to see what's going on?
No. I saw Chuck, he came into my work the other day, and he made a comment about my upstairs neighbor saying that there had been a lot of car traffic the week after things had happened, and asked me if things had quieted down a little bit and whatnot. But other than that, he came by, I think, the week before to clean our gutters and stuff. So
yeah, well,
that was strange. Chuck, the landlord, came around the next week and was wondering if the neighbors upstairs had a lot of car traffic. That is after the murders. I wonder if the neighbors upstairs, where this young man lives, had car traffic and had many visitors right before the murders. Couple of days before the murders, weeks before the murders, hours before the murders, days before the murders. The reason I say that is Ilan Hush said that he saw a black SUV that was really elegant, a really nice looking SUV, expensive one. He said it had the plates of either Arizona, Montana, which other place did he said? Nevada. He said a couple of places. But I believe the black SUV that Inan Hush was talking about was, I believe, the black truck, SUV, that Dylan, his stepmother, allegedly owns. 3 a.m. at night sharp, you see at the Banfield stop a black truck passing by. I showed you that many times in these last couple of months. You can go back to my previous videos and watch that. I personally believe it was that one, but I could be wrong.
Well, I'm not to get personal on your rent, but what does like rent go for around there? Like what is the rent prices around there?
I know my rent is extremely low in comparison to a lot of the other apartments.
Yeah.
I live in a single bedroom, like studio apartment. But I know that like a lot of the apartments like on Clean Road, the big apartment complex at the top of Clean Road, they're like $600-700 a month, if not more. And that's, I think the lowest one is probably around $650, $675 and up and higher for that area.
So I'm wondering how much they paid for that house, like to rent that house, the whole house.
Yeah, I have no idea who or how much the upstairs neighbors pay, because I've got one of the bottom apartments, and then there's one other bottom apartment, and then the top floor has the whole, like, an entire house.
Yeah.
Per se. And I know that one is quite a bit more than what I had rent for.
Did you see police talking to any of the fraternity people?
I have not.
You have not? Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for the insight. Just trying to get some insight of, the area and trying to, just get a perspective of the neighbors, of how they feel, the situation. Anything else you want to add?
Just that I really hope that we start getting more information and they either find the person that's, guilty of this or something. And I also do find it kind of weird that there were 2 roommates in the house that were sleeping on the bottom floor when the murders took place. So it's like, what the hell's going on, guys?
So that does concern you, like 2 roommates that police have said most likely are not involved. You just find that odd.
Yeah, because well, in my opinion, like, stabbings are very personable. So it feels like the person that did it knows these people. And it was, I read somewhere that that the victims had defensive wounds, which if that's the case, then that means there was a, noise, there was a ruckus inside the building. So how do you go, like, if you're sleeping downstairs and people are rustling around up above you and getting killed, like, how do you not wake up to that?
I know. And I heard there was a dog. There was a dog in the house.
Oh, I did not know that yet.
You never saw a dog or any animals around there?
There's a bunch of college people that have animals that walk up and down. I just don't know, what house they belong to.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate Canaan, right? Is that be safe, and hopefully this gets solved soon. And
So this young gentleman, Canaan, found it strange that there were 2 surviving roommates, DM and BF, and that they were sleeping at the first floor. Remember that's what we were told for the first 7 weeks. And obviously, like JLR mentioned, a dog was inside the house, Murphy, and Murphy was untouched or unharmed. All these things will play a role in the trial. And I think behind the scenes, Ann Taylor has enough information that she knows that it's not only maybe her client who did it, but she is going to fire up with questions for DM and BF. Were you sleeping in the first floor, or were you sleeping upstairs? Who was sleeping upstairs? Who was sleeping downstairs? BF, did you freeze? Were you frozen? Is that the reason you didn't call the police? And when she says yes, the question is, can somebody freeze for 8 hours? Didn't DM need to go to the toilet? Didn't BF was downstairs? Is BF trying to tell us that she couldn't hear the rummaging upstairs in the living room? Because we saw the crime scene forensic team taking pictures of the living room and the corridor. BF was sleeping downstairs in the first floor, but then later on, 7 weeks later, she was upstairs in the second floor. She opened her door 3 times. She heard somebody saying, "I'm here to help you. Don't worry, I'm here to help." She saw a man with a black mask, athletic build, bushy eyebrows. Did she see Said? Allegedly. Did she see Jovita? Allegedly. Did she see the 3 boys in the Banfield? Allegedly, because they all seem to have bushy eyebrows. There, I said it. That's my opinion. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, JLR. You always do excellent interviews. I've always appreciated that. And I'm glad that I found this interview. Please like, share, and subscribe to Jonathan Lee Investigates. JLR is the channel's name. Have a lovely weekend.